Hi, my name is Gracie, and today we're going to be talking about all the books that I read in 2024. Now, we're going to go in order from the one that really started off my new reading journey, and then we're going to go through all the books I've read since then. First, I was reading Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead because everyone and their mother loves this book. I don't know what it was about it. Personally, for me, I could not get through it. It took me over a year to read this. Mind you, I wasn't really that much of an avid reader before then. I read a lot when I was in elementary school, middle school, you name it. I was a scholar. I was on Battle of the Books Club in 4th grade, and I won that second place trophy, girl. It's not even a long book. I think it took me over a year to read this if you look at my Goodreads, and I didn't even review her. I think now if I were to review it, I would give it 3.5 stars because it's not quite 4 stars. And I don't know what it is. If I love a book, it's going to be 5 stars, and if I don't like a book, it's going to be like 3 stars. So it was a very realistic book, and I feel like maybe if it was a movie, I would enjoy it more, but something about it, it just wasn't for me. Now, the next book I read, I was dog sitting, was Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. I read this in August. Me now in January can't really remember much of what happened in this book. Something about it. I read this in 24 hours, less than. I was dog sitting and they had a pool. And I laid by the pool all day reading this. I couldn't put this thing down. And I'm gonna have to reread it because I cannot really remember what happened in it. I don't know if it was the format, the writing, the characters. It had to have been a combination of all of that if I read it that quickly, because I don't know the last time I did that. But this really started me on my reading journey. This made me get a library card. This made me start really paying attention to my Goodreads. Next, I read The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold. I had never heard of this book or the movie, but it was on our Book Nook shelf, and I was like, this is a cool cover. Looks a little mysterious. I like the little house bracelet. Let me read it. Devastating, but really good. And Saoirse Ronan, she's in the movie, and I need to watch it. But also, I don't know if it'll live up to the standards of how I was imagining it in my head. So I'm always a little afraid of watching book to movie adaptations, which when we get to the last book I read of this year, the movie, this book, I read it on the plane coming back from Rhode Island, visiting my ava, my grandma. So I always think of that. Just me on the plane, scouring through this book. Okay, so for the rest of the books, these are the books I'm reading right now that I got from the library, so we're going to get to those at the very end of the video, but I have my little iPad with the list of all the books that I read this year and the ratings I gave them on Goodreads, so that I can talk to you about them without having them here physically, because books are expensive. But I did just sign up for Tertulia, which is like an online bookstore where it's $25 a year for the membership, which is basically one book nowadays, and you get free shipping and 10% off all books, but then once you spend $150, you get 20% off all books. I thought it was super cool that every dollar that you spend, you get a stake in their company because they're a small company. So you basically are investing in their company. So once they make enough money, I'll start getting money back for investing in their company. I do have a little link in the description of this video, but if you get a membership and you use the link, I'll get $10 towards buying a book. So if you're gonna get a membership, might as well use the link anyway. Okay, so for the next book, I read Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, and I rated it 4 stars, but I don't know. I read it, I think, within like a week or so, and I keep thinking about it ever since I read it. I probably read it around September, but something about it's about these game designers and their friends in college and sort of their journey through life, game designing, and like they're sort of dancing around each other. I think it's what I expected normal people to be for me. Again, unpopular opinion, and I'm so sorry, but I think I read all the way through Normal People when I read it a few years ago, but something about it just, I was sort of bored. And I'm so sorry to say that. I know everyone loves Normal People, but this sort of felt like that. Like, you know, when you push two magnets together, they just repel each other. This is what that felt like when I read this. And I think about it all the time. I think about what I imagine them being in college like. There's certain like things where when I'm reading, I know it's not real, and I know it's not a real memory of mine, but I'm imagining their life like a movie in my head as I'm reading it. And so later on, when I listen to a song that I was listening to while I was reading, I think back to the memory as if it's my own. And I do that so often with this book. I don't know. I know I rated it 4 stars, but I think if I were to re-rate it now, I would at least give it 4.5 stars because of how much, like, I wouldn't say that it impacted me, but I still think about this book all the time. And even the book that I read in a day, I love that book so much, but I don't really think about it that much, and I don't remember the plot. But this book, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, I didn't read it as fast, and maybe that's why I remember it so vividly, because I took the time and slowed down while I read it and really absorbed the information. And I really liked it. Now, Meet Me at the Lake. I know a lot of people love this book, but I saw a lot of the Goodreads reviews agreeing with me, where it just felt so wrong reading it because in this book, both main characters have their own partners that are perfectly kind and nice to them, and they've been in long committed relationships to them, and they just start emotionally cheating on them. The main girl, she meets this guy for like a couple of hours and she's imagining doing crazy things with him. And I can't even be like, oh my god, girl, you're so scandalous. Because I'm like, what about your boyfriend back home that you've been with for 3 years? So next we have Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. And now listen, I rated this also 3 stars, but there's a reason for it. Because I know it can be read as a standalone book, but technically it is the third book in a trilogy. And I didn't know that when I read it. I was going through these books that I had been recommended, and I was like, ooh, this one looks fun. It's at the library, let me check it out. I didn't really like the writing. Here's the thing. It felt very dated to me. The main character, man, literally said, I turned the corner and I saw her and my body took a screenshot. And I was like, what? If if my grandma were to read this book, she would be so confused. And I just feel like maybe we shouldn't put TikTok language into like literature. It was making me cringe so hard. And I know there are some people out there who would love this book. And I liked the main plot of it. Maybe if it was written by someone else, I would have liked it more. Later down the line, you'll see I did go back and read the first book of the trilogy. And then I was remembering how these people were in this book, and I was like, and then there's a second book with more people who were in that book, and I was like, this would have been more interesting if I would have read them in order. So the next book I read was The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, and I give it 4 stars. Hear me out once again, okay? Because this book was really good. I liked the way it was written. It was easy to visualize. The characters are recognizable. The plot was easy to follow. All the things you need to set yourself up for a good book. I just found myself a little bit bored getting through the second half of the book. Now, the first half of the book I thought was well paced, but the second half of the book, it was just a lot of war, which I know is probably done on purpose. It feels like so much filler is there for like a good third of the book. And at some point, I'm like, there's enough of y'all. Just storm the castle. Spoilers. Take the lady and leave, bro. But the end was tragic. I cried. And I thought it was overall just a really good book. It's just not my genre of choice. So next, finally, a good one. This is probably my best read of the year, other than even the Christina Lauren. Sorry, girl. No one trumps Jandy Nelson. Is trumps the right word? When the World Tips Over by Jandy Nelson. I love Jandy Nelson. I'll Give You the Sun has been my favorite book for probably 10 years of my life. I tell everyone to read it. Everyone that I actually get to read it says, oh, this is one of my favorite books now. When the World Tips Over is about family. It's about relationships. But I love how Jandy Nelson paints a picture. She had me crying for like 100 pages straight. If you can make me that emotional over words, something about this book, it didn't go over I'll Give You the Sun for me, but it was also 5 stars. Okay, next we have Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. First book of the trilogy. This one I liked a lot more. The language was less dated. There were some weird references and weird dialogue and stuff that I was like, if I read this 10 years ago, I wouldn't have understood it. And that irks me a little bit. And maybe it doesn't irk you. And that's totally fine. I really liked it. And I liked, in a way, that I had read the third book first. Because reading the first book and how certain characters set up for the story of the third one, I was like, this is so much more fun. But it still wasn't like my favorite book ever. and I think I'm still going to read the second one. Sue me. So the next one I read was The Sky is Everywhere by Jandy Nelson, because I was like, I'll Give You the Sun 2 or 3 times in my life. And I just read When the World Tips Over, and I've never read her first book, and people rave about it. Now, I rated this one 4.5 stars. We're going to talk about the movie in a second. That's just what's in the forefront of my mind right now. But so I found myself getting kind of confused with the plots of this book and When the World Tips Over, because they have such similar elements, like trumpets, floating. If you were to read the 2 books, you'd understand. I don't know if anyone watching this has read the 2 books, but because I had read them so close back to back, I was kind of confused, and that's my own fault. But I felt like this book was really, really good, but I could tell it was her first book. It was still good. There were just elements about it that I didn't find as interesting as the other ones. I like her very unique style of writing that feels so whimsical and magical. But the other 2 books, they had this sort of mysterious element to them, where as you were reading, you were figuring out more information that revealed something big at the end that was a twist and you didn't see coming. This book, I sort of thought had that, and I think because I was expecting, like, spoiler, in The Skies Everywhere, her sister died. And I was, for some reason, thinking at the end of the book that it was going to be revealed that she died in this crazy way, or she wasn't dead, or it was going to be revealed where their mom was, because their mom was missing. But nothing was really, it was sort of just left open, and I guess that's my fault for expecting something different of her death or something different of their mom missing. The movie, Sean and I we both read the book and then we both watched the movie, and we knew it had bad reviews, but it was made by A24 and it was made in 2022, so you think it'd be good, but it was so bad. They completely changed. See, I was talking about how their mom was like gone. She was exploring the world. In the movie, they were like, she died in the same way that my sister died. And it was just like, whoa, 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 whoa. The whole thing in the book is that she is trying to figure out why her sister was searching up her mom so adamantly and trying to find her, because she finds out later on that she's pregnant and that her and her boyfriend were going to get married, and she died. So she was looking for her mom because she was pregnant. And she wanted to find her. And then in the movie, they just 10 minutes in are like, yeah, her mom's dead too. Which completely changes a lot of things. If something is happening 20 minutes into the movie that it took me 300 pages to get to in the book, I'm gonna feel like something's off. I can't say anymore. Anywho, I'm reading The 7-Year Slip now. I am almost done with it. I'm probably like 80% through the book, and I really like it so far. I ordered this book on Tertulia too because I saw it was only $15 with my membership, and I was like halfway through it and I was like, it's really good. 7-Year Slip is about a girl, spoiler alert, her aunt dies and she gets her apartment, and her aunt would tell her these stories about how she would go into the apartment and it would be 7 years prior and she fell in love with this girl. And then 7 years in the future, because when you step through the door, it's in present time, but when you're in the apartment, it can slip back to 7 years ago, if that makes sense. While they're in the apartment together, they just can't leave together 7 years ago. But in the future, they're still there, so you can find them 7 years later. And I guess it didn't go well for her. But this girl didn't really believe her aunt. She was like, okay, whimsical stories you told me when I was a kid. But then it happens to her, and she meets this guy. And I don't want to spoil anymore, but I really like it. I think it's so much fun. And I knew nothing. Okay. I love knowing nothing about a movie or a book just so I can fully immerse myself in it and not have any spoilers. And I did that with this book. I didn't know what it was about at all. I saw people talking about how good it was, and I saw it on a bunch of lists. Like Goodreads and Tertulia have lists of like recommended books, and it was on so many lists. So I was like, let me give her a shot. And I really like it so far, and I'm almost done. So follow me on Goodreads to see what I think about that one. And then next I'm going to read Good Material by Dolly Alderton. I tried reading her book, Everything I Know About Love, I think it's called, and I got about halfway through it, but I personally, it's hard for me to get through something that isn't like a narrative story. And so I was having trouble reading that. I'm pretty sure this is a narrative book, and I've seen some people say it's pretty good, and I know it's new, so I got it from the library, and I'm going to give it a shot because I did like her writing and I liked her experiences. I just couldn't make it through that book all the way. So hopefully I'll like this one because it's more narrative. And I really like the cover. It's really fun. And I'm really trying this year to read every month of the year because last year I didn't read anything until August, and then I went through 10 books by the end of the year, which I know a lot of people probably don't think is a lot, but it's a lot for me because I haven't read like that since I was a kid, and I'm trying really hard to maintain this because I know it is good for me to consume media that is not a TV show I'm binging or TikTok I'm watching on my phone. If you have any recommendations, I'd really appreciate them, especially if you watch this so you kind of know what I like and what I don't like, and you think there's something I'd like. That'd be cool. And we could be friends on Goodreads. And if you think Tertulia sounds cool and you weren't annoyed with me talking about it, there's a link in the description. But anywho, this is what I read in 2024, and hopefully I'll see you guys again for what I read in 2025. And you'll see them on there.